Hello and welcome to the third in our video series, Take 10 on Tuesdays with the Tennessee Tribune. Just take a little time out on Tuesdays and follow us. And today we're having a chat with Bimpe Archer. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
And she is actually on a fellowship with the Tennessee Tribune, with the International Center for Journalists, and she's from Ireland, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about herself and the paper where she works in Ireland.
Yes, I work for the Irish News in Belfast, which is in Northern Ireland, and I've been there for about 12 years now. We're a daily morning paper, and we cover all of it. It's based in Belfast. We have a correspondent in the Republic of Ireland, and we generally cover the whole of Northern Ireland with news stories. It's quite a campaigning sort of a paper, a lot of hard news in it. I try and break as many stories as we can on a daily basis. And yeah, I've been in journalism. I graduated from my journalism course in 2000, and I did some freelancing for a while in the daily papers in Belfast. And then I worked for a while in a weekly newspaper in a nearby town called Carrickfergus, and then I returned to the Irish News. I've been there ever since.
Oh, great. And what kinds of things are you covering? What do you have, a beat or?
No, I mean we don't have an enormous staff, so it's really we have a political correspondent and a health correspondent and education correspondent, and the rest of us really do hard news, whatever's happening. You could be wake up in the morning and you could be, covering an opening or something, or you could be doing a murder. It's driven by the news agenda, really. But
and what is the news agenda?
Well, when I say that, I mean by whatever's happening.
Oh, whatever's
on that day,
going on.
You know.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But I do sort of, where there is a specialty, I would look at more the legal stories, like changes to civil legal aid and criminal legal aid, and that's what we have, a system where you can get help from the government to pay your lawyer if you're charged with, well, we don't have public defenders the way you do here, so you would be paid, you would be paying a private barrister and a private solicitor, but the state pays it, because the theory is that the state has unlimited resources. So therefore you should be able to match that, to match your case, to defend yourself, because you're innocent until proven guilty. Mm-hmm. But the spending was getting out of control. It was felt by some, so that's been limited, and very high cost cases taken out and those sorts of things. So that's sort of the recent legal work I've been doing. Before I left, we've had a lot of unrest in Belfast and surrounding towns, sort of rioting and things, and I was covering a bit of that.
And what's the unrest about?
Well, there was Belfast City Council took a decision to stop flying the Union flag. That's the flag of the United Kingdom,
right,
which Northern Ireland is part of, over the City Hall every day of the year.
Oh, really?
And instead, they only fly it on designated days now, and that's the case in a lot of the councils around Northern Ireland. But this was seen by loyalists and unionists as sort of like an erosion of their Britishness. So then they started to protest, and then some of those protests have turned violent, and it seems to have been about more than just the flag. They're sort of saying, there's been a lot of deprivation in some of the areas, and they're saying that they feel that the other side, as it's put, is getting a lot. So I think the unrest is still going on. I've been able to follow while I've been here. It's very superficial.
Is sports a big part of your coverage?
Oh, it's massive for our paper. Yeah, okay. We are the sort of foremost paper in covering Gaelic games.
Okay.
So
now, Gaelic games. Tell us what that is.
Well, you have football, we have soccer.
Right.
Well, then there's another form of football.
Oh, really?
Called Gaelic football.
Okay.
Which is sort of, I don't know if you know rugby at all, but it can sort of be seen as a sort of halfway between football and rugby, but then it's different again. So you can carry the ball, you can kick the ball.
Oh, so it has different rules.
Yeah, completely. Okay. Yeah, it's quite like, I don't know if you know what Australian rules football, but it's a bit more like that. And sometimes Ireland will have like an all-stars team will play Australia, and Aussie rules all-star team, and there's an international sort of matches. But that's very popular with our readership. and you know, sports, like say that's what sells the paper. We don't know, it's not, so, you know. So.
I think the discussion is takes place in American newsrooms as well. So, okay. Now, what about feature coverage? And is your paper a broadsheet or is it a tabloid?
No, when I started out, about 2000, I think it must have been, when I was doing my journalism course, it went from broadsheet to Berliner.
Oh, I see.
And then a few years ago now, it's now gone to, we call it compact, but it's tabloid size, that you maybe understand it as. And then we went full colour as well.
Oh, good. Okay.
So sometimes you look back at the archives, you see the old ones, and they look so dated because, you know.
They do.
Yeah, and they've been redesigned and a few times. And so, yeah, and it's, I'd say maybe 56 sort of page every day. And the features, we have...
It's a pretty good size.
Yeah, we have a separate features section. And most days there'll be some features content, but the big days are Friday and Saturday, the weekend sort of sections.
Okay.
Although there's woman talk as well, and something for Mondays. And so it's, you know, it does cross the gamut. You know, we've got, you know, latest releases, and we would sometimes take press associations, different associations, if big interviews, but also they do a lot of work on interviewing local bands and finding, you know,
so the entertainment coverage is pretty in-depth as well. Is there an equivalent to a Pulitzer Prize in Ireland?
Well, there are various prizes. The regional journalism awards, which the Irish News has done very well in. It's won Newspaper of the Year in that, and then a few, like something like 10 years out of 12 or something. Like we are very good. And then there's awards for different categories. So it might be news reporter, health specialist, and things like that. I don't know if that's the same as Pulitzer. And then there's a general UK-wide one, which they're quite separated. So it's hard for a regional journalist to win. There's not one that wouldn't be necessarily up against national journalists the same way. I don't know if you would be. So there's an award within, there's awards within Northern Ireland, one award within Northern Ireland, the IPRs it's known as, and then there's a regional press awards, which is all the press in all the regions of the United Kingdom, or all can submit, and then they pick from that, and then they would have a national press award, where the big London days, like the Times and the Guardian, they would be the ones who would be contending for those ones.
Now tell us a little bit more about the International Center for Journalists and how you came to be in that program, and what do you think of your time here in Nashville so far?
Well, the International Center for Journalists, its motto is about advancing excellence in journalism, and it runs a lot of programs, most of them, not that many between the United Kingdom and America. Most of them seem to be more like the developing world, so they had, or just further away. So there's a Russian journalist exchange program for us, and there's some sort of Pakistani program they have as well. And sometimes they send journalists out there. There's an exchange programs, or they'll bring them over. Our particular one was called Beyond the Regions, reporting beyond the regions. So it's bringing regional journalists from the United Kingdom to America. So we had 2 days of programming, as it was called, in Washington, where we had amazing speakers, and we could have discussions with them, like the Ipsos pollster and somebody for the Center for Public Integrity, and just really interesting think tanks. And then we then moved on to our sister cities. So Belfast is twinned with Nashville.
Oh, I see.
And every year in Belfast we have a Belfast Nashville Music Festival.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would have, and then there'd be like local musical artists, and then they'd have Nashville ones would come over, and they would have joint concerts, and there's lots of little things, workshops and things.
Right.
So I'm here, and so this is our perception of Nashville from Northern Ireland is very much country music.
Definitely, yes.
So it was really, I met the American consul, we had one in Belfast before I came, and he was saying about civil rights, and that's the first I've really heard, about it. And that's what I'm finding since I've been here. It's been a real fascinating and very moving as well. I was at a luncheon today for Martin Luther King Day, and some of the people who were the lieutenants and the foot soldiers, they were calling themselves, were having a discussion, and it was fascinating, because obviously we know all about the civil rights movement.
Right.
But I suppose you just don't know. I didn't realise the importance Nashville had in it. You know, I suppose it's a bit like how can you absorb everything? So we know about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and you know, and the general battles that were fought, Little Rock, but this was really interesting, and the parallels were very interesting as well. So I'll be writing a bit about that for my paper when I go back.
Oh, good. Well, I hope we can get a story from you in the Tennessee Tribune
I'd like to.
That's similar to that.
Yeah.
And what parallels are you finding?
Well, what I thought was fascinating was we had our troubles. They started in the late 60s over there was a civil rights, there was a housing, and this kind of thing about how it was felt that the Protestants, who were usually unionists, were getting the good houses, and there was a case where a single girl was given a house in one of the towns outside Belfast, and there was a Catholic family of 8 or something, and they hadn't been able to get one. So that started off, and there was a big march in Derry, London Derry.
Yes.
And then but then the response from the soldiers that were there on the day, a shooting that started. So from peaceful beginnings, it turned very quickly and very devastatingly into violence. And what I thought was fascinating was how you managed to keep it peaceful,
right? And
how I'm just fascinated to know what that was about. So I did an interview earlier today as well as somebody, and I was just sort of saying, it was a reverend who was involved in it around the same time. And I was sort of saying, was it the spirituality of it? Was it the fact that the church was strong? Or was it the charisma of the leaders?
Right.
So it's still a work in progress. So I'm just trying to kind of, and then when I get home, I'll have a bit of a look, because it's very live to us, because we're still having problems. We've still got dissident Republicans trying to kill people, and we've still got the loyalists rioting.
Right.
So it's so many years later.
Right, almost 50 years later.
Yeah.
So it's still, the story continues, and I think the story continues in America too, in different ways. But that's interesting to hear your perspective on it. So what do you hope to do when you go back, and how do you see your career progressing in journalism?
Well, I was actually listening then to the very inspiring speakers, and I was thinking, when I go back even outside journalism, I must find something to actually see how you can make a difference. Because I think you can make a difference through journalism, but it's interesting to sort of see, well, what else is there out there that you maybe could be out there spearheading the start of and just keeping on. I'm happy with the Irish News. It's kind of, because we are the paper of the year so often, and we're such a good, and it's a lovely firm, it's family run, and it's, so within journalism, if I was to stay in Northern Ireland, I don't know where else I would go, so I suppose it's kind of about maybe just you always try and better last year. Do you know what I mean? You always want to think that next year's stories will be better than this year's stories, and that, and because of journalism the way it is, there's always new stories to tell, there's always new people to meet, there's always new things to do, so I suppose more of the same, but hopefully turbocharged maybe, I don't know.
Right, okay. All right, well listen, thank you very much, Bimpe Archer, and we're glad you're here visiting with us. And I'm Sandra Long-Weaver. I'm the editorial director for the Tennessee Tribune, and this has been Take 10 on Tuesdays. Thank you.
Thank you.